What's up everyone, Danny Lightning back with another War Robots video. So there's about 1,000,000 back with another War Robots video. So there's about 1,000,000 things either being buffed or nerfed. There's a huge set of balance changes coming up. I'm going to put these up on the screen so you can see them all. There's just too much to read here. This is going to take me an hour and I'm dyslexic, so I suck at reading. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through it. Press the pause button as you need to, because I'm not going to read off every single buff or nerf, but you will be able to see those on the screen. As you can see, the Dux is getting a pretty significant nerf, and so is the Condor. Both of those robots are being nerfed. Now, it looks like the Baglier robot is about to get a buff here. It looks like it's going to get a big durability increase, which it needs. So there's the Condor right there. So the Baglier is getting a really nice buff, and the Raptor is getting nerfed. It looks like there's going to be some significant nerfs to the Raptor. It's probably not going to be the world's strongest tank anymore after the rebalance. So the Pathfinder is getting a nerf. I don't know why they're nerfing that one. The Nemesis is getting some buffs, so the Nemesis is getting buffed. That's a really cool robot, so hopefully it's good after the changes. And they're also going to be buffing the Raven, which is cool. The Spectre is getting a buff, and the Tyr is getting a buff. Unfortunately, the Tyr will not be healing gray damage. I think that's one thing we would all love to see, but Tyr is getting a buff. Riker is getting a nice buff. The Pursuer is getting a nice buff. Hiachi is getting a buff. The Strider is getting a buff. And the Bulgasari is getting a buff. So, yeah, good stuff right there. Most of these buffs are awesome. I like the buffs. And some of the nerfs are needed. Some of them probably aren't, though. We'll get into more of these here in a second. So after the Bulgasari, if I can speak right, so we got some changes to the Nether, and then we're going to move on to Titan. So Nether is getting a pretty decent little buff. I still don't think the Nether is going to be good, but now we're moving on to the Titans. And Mauler is going to be taking a big hit. I mean, it's going to get a durability increase, but it's going to lose a lot of defense points, which should make it killable. In my opinion, the Mauler has been a holy terror, just wreaking havoc on the battlefield. So thank God they are going to nerf that thing. That's just a redonkulous robot. Don't know why they brought out something that powerful that you just can't kill. So yeah, that needs a nerf big time. So it looks like the Bersaglier Titan is getting some nerfs and some buffs. So it's going to get some damage buffs and nerfs and some durability buffs and nerfs. I mean, some of what they're doing there looks good. Some of it looks bad, but you can read that for yourself if you want. Nodens is getting some buffs, right? Nodens is already pretty decent. So this is going to make the Nodens even better, which is awesome. So I'm really looking forward to the Nodens buff. I think that'll be really cool. Arthur is getting buffed. There's some really nice changes to the Arthur that should definitely make him a little bit better. It's probably still not going to be good, as that's like an old school starter Titan, but he's getting some buffs. It looks like the Rook is going to be getting buffed. They're also going to be increasing some movement speed and built-in weapon damage to the Newton. That might be a good thing. I'm not 100% sure. The Newton's probably still going to suck. I mean, the Newton's not that good right now, but they are buffing it. So the Aether is getting a nice buff, right? He's going to get a 7% durability increase, and he's going to go from 10 to 12 seconds in the abilities. So that's pretty nice. That might make the Aether worth playing again, especially after they nerf that stupid Mauler. The Sirius is going to get some remote assault turret damage bonuses, and he's also going to heal more damage, plus he's going to get increased durability. So that's going to be a nice buff on the Sirius. The Sirius is a cool Titan, but it's not really fun to play. It gets stuck on everything. It's big, it's wide. Nobody really likes playing it. But yeah, those are the Titan buffs and nerfs. So we're going to move on to robot weapons being buffed or nerfed. So it looks like the Smite and Discipline are getting a buff, and they're getting increased splash damage. They're reducing the blast charge accumulation, so it looks like there's going to be some buffs and nerfs on that one. The Heller, Screamer, and Growler are getting some increased burst intervals, so that's going to be kind of a nerf. They're going to shoot slower, I guess. So the Heller, Screamer, and Growler will now shoot slower. The Arthos, Aramis, and Parthos, whatever it is, are getting the increased amount of gray damage returned as repair. I'm not 100% sure what that means. Increase the amount of damage returned as repair. So I think that means they're getting a repair buff. So I think that's a buff. I think they're going to repair you more if I'm reading that correctly. Sometimes the way they word things just doesn't make sense to me, but I think that's what's going on there. But they're also going to be reducing the damage by 30%. So I don't know, guys. That might not be a good thing. Not really sure. I mean, that's good and bad. More healing, but less damage? That might kill those off. So the Hurricane and the Dunes are getting some buffs and some nerfs. The Snare, Scotty, and Hill are getting some buffs. They're actually buffing those again. So maybe, just maybe, those weapons will be playable. Not 100% sure. Claw, Jaw, and Talon are getting some buffs, which is really good. That's going to get an increased damage buff, so that may or may not be good. I mean, those things take so long to fire off all the ammo. I'm not sure that that's really going to help them, but they are getting buffed. So the Scald, Scorcher, and Incinerator, those are getting a damage explosion buff by 6%, which is pretty cool. And it looks like they're doing something to Cudgel, Mace, and Hammer. Please don't tell me that's a nerf. Please do not tell me that's a nerf, or I am going to cry. Alright, so those are getting a reduced particle dispersion, so I think that means the spread's not going to be as wide, so they might actually hit you a little bit harder if you're from a distance now, so that's a buff. Plus they're getting increased blast accumulation by 5%, so they're actually buffing the Cudgel, Mace, and Hammer. That right there is awesome, because those are some really good free-to-play shotguns you can build in the workshop. The Kisphos, Labrys, and Cestus are getting a 10% damage increase, so that's really good. The Spear is getting some sort of change there. I don't understand what that says whatsoever. That's why I don't read some of this off. I don't know. Maybe you can figure out. Maybe you can make heads or tails out of that, but it looks like some sort of Einstein math equation right there, and I have no clue in the world what that is even supposed to mean. That is confusing. Big time confusing. So it looks like the Fainter is getting a pretty nice buff. Hopefully that makes those good again, because those are actually pretty cool weapons. So Fainter buff, boys and girls. We got a Fainter buff up on the way. And now we're going to go over to Titan weapons being nerfed or buffed. So we got the Anguisher and the Ruiner increased damage over time. So those are getting a bit of a buff. But they're also going to be losing 40% of their damage, meaning those weapons are probably going to suck. 40% less damage. I mean, they're so strong and they hit some hard. Maybe they'll still be worth playing, but they're not going to be brutal destroying beasts anymore. So I would say it might be time to replace those after the nerf. But they're also going to give them increased horizontal particle dispersion. So I guess that means they're going to spread less, increase vertical particle dispersion, whatever, reduce DOT from 10 seconds to 4 seconds. I don't know what that means. I think that's another nerf. So the Vindicators are getting an increased damage by 20%, increased reload from 6 seconds to 15 seconds. So the Vindicator sniper weapons are going to have a 15-second reload time. That is a huge hit on those weapons. The Inferno and the Pyro weapons are getting increased time before the weapon starts cooling off from 5 to 7 seconds, reduced damage by 10%. So the Titan flamethrowers are basically getting a nerf right there. They're getting nerfed, so they're still probably going to be fine, but not as good. The Telemus and Discordia are getting increased reload from 1 to 2 seconds. Okay, I don't know why they're messing with those. That doesn't need it. Belova and Kristen increased splash radius, so that is a buff. Increased damage by 10 per second. So Belova, and Kisten, whatever it is, those are getting a nice little buff. The Grom and the Squall reduced reload time, so that's a buff. Increased damage by 12%, so that's actually kind of a good thing. And it says, will this ever end? That's because there's like 950 million bazillion things on the list to be nerfed or buffed. Next, we have a whole bunch of drones being nerfed. So the Pascal increased the amount of gray durability repaired by the on-threshold fixed 7%, 8% when fully upgraded. The on-kill assist bonus damage ability is replaced by a new mechanic. Pascal will provide a 10% bonus to damage as long as the robot has heavy armor plates. Heavy armor plates? What is that? I'm not sure if that's talking about the modules or what, but it does say curry here. So does that mean it's only going to work well on the curry? I'm not exactly sure, but they're going to really change the Pascal drone big time. And I've got a bad feeling that's going to be a really bad thing. So Pascal has been one of those drones you can throw on any robot you want and play it for quite a while now. So I'm not really sure what's going on with this, but that's not looking good for that drone. From if it's saying what I think it's saying, that's not looking good for that drone. So the Seeker drone is getting a big nerf. So now you have to be at 250 meters or closer to get quantum radar. So that sucks. 250 meters. You're going to have to be really close to the enemies for the Seeker drone to work. Honestly, they are nerfing the Seeker, and that's pretty lousy. So the Shy is getting the increasing the amount of defense points providing by on-damage drone defense. So the Shy is actually getting a buff. That's good because the Shy is a great universal drone that works for just about anything. They're increasing the bonus to the movement speed, so that's really good. And the Last Stand will now activate at 80% durability instead of 35%. Now that, I don't really understand. So the good thing about that, if you're running a Last Stand and that, you're going to get one Last Stand at 80% and one at like 35%. So you're going to get two Last Stands at two different times if you're able to run a Last Stand module. So honestly, that's okay. I mean, that's weird. I don't know why they're doing that, but no complaints there, I don't think. So the iDrone, that's an old school drone, so nobody's really going to care about this, but that's getting a buff. It's probably not going to be any good. The Persephone is getting an increased amount of durability repaired, so it's going to be healing you by more. Not by much, but by a little bit. So, I mean, the Persephone is an okay drone if you can't get anything else. The Nebula increased to the duration of the Absorber from 1 to 2 seconds and increased the amount of durability repaired, up to 7%. So that's not a bad thing, actually. Maybe the Nebula will be worth playing again. I'm not 100% sure, but maybe, baby, all be true. Had to sing some Buddy Holly right there. Next up, we have some balance changes coming to the Mothership. So the Avalon is increasing the amount of green durability restored. So that's a buff to the Avalon. Reducing the amount of gray damage restored from 15 to 7%. So that's a nerf. And reduce the amount of cleanse stacks from 5 to 15. So, I don't know how that's going to make the Avalon feel. That's currently the best Mothership in the game. So there's some good and some bad there. So I don't know if that's going to be good or bad, to tell you the truth. I have no idea. But nerfs and buffs to the Avalon. The Beholder is going to get a 20% damage increase, which is great. And it looks like they're actually going to be nerfing or buffing some pilots. So the Dux pilot, the Willa Own, is getting some sort of a balance change. Let me move the screen here. So the Dux is only going to go into stealth for 5 seconds. I don't know what it's currently doing, but 5 seconds on the stealth. He says, finish, phew, see you on the battlefield if you ever finish reading all of that. Good luck. Yeah, that's like an hour's worth of reading. Maybe like 3 hours worth of reading. Yeah, too much reading for me. Way too much reading for me, but it is what it is, right? It is what it is. So basically, we have a huge list of nerfs and buffs. I'm very happy about anything that's older that's getting buffed. That's great. We cannot complain one bit about older items getting buffed and being made better. Some of these crazy overpowered items are being toned down, which is nice. But there's a few things like the Pascal drone. I don't know. There's a few things I'm a little worried about that are actually really nice right now that everybody should be able to keep nice, whatever that means. But I don't know if they're going to be nice anymore. So there's a few things that are probably going to get hit really hard that probably don't need it. Now, this is a test server, right? None of these are 100% set in stone because these are nerfs and buffs being tested on the test server. So there's a pretty good chance some of these may not happen. Some of them may be changed more or less. So these are just the proposed nerfs and buffs that they are testing on the test server. Any of this can change at any time, but more than likely this will go through. I'm glad to see that there's not a nerf on the Luchador this time. So far our Luchador is still safe. That is an awesome Titan. So Luchador is still safe for at least a while now. So that is a good thing. But there's some buffs and nerfs to some Titans, and I don't know. Everything is getting changed. So another huge major change to the game is coming soon.